Today we have text 19 of chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yatha Dipo Nivata Sto Ningate Sopamasmrita Yogino Yata Chittasya Yunjato Yogam Atmanaha. Yatha as Deepa, a lamp, Nivatastaha, in a place without wind, Na, does not, Ingate, waver, Sa, this, Upama, comparison. Smrita is considered Yoginaha, of the yogi, Yata Chittasya, whose mind is controlled, Yunjataha, constantly engaged, Yogam, in meditation, Atmanaha, on transcendence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Purport. A truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant, undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Gnanjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Hena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Putre Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vanchakalpadarvasya Kripasinvasya Vaishnabhyo Namo Namaha. Okay. The first thing that we could notice is that Srila Prabhupada in this, or adjacent purports, directly goes to the conclusion. Conclusion is Krishna. Vedaischa sarvahir aham eva vidyo. Krishna says later in the 15th chapter that the goal of the Vedas, or in another sense, the goal of all process of knowledge, Veda means knowledge, we can refer to them as books, particular texts, or as the knowable, Vedaischa sarvahim aham eva vidyoho, means by all process of knowledge, or by all the Vedas, I am to be known. So Srila Prabhupada speaks and comments the Bhagavad-gita from that platform. Generally, other commentators would focus more on the context, immediate context of the text. The text is, in this, we are in the middle of the chapter, Dhyana Yoga, and describes to some extent what's a mechanical process of controlling the mind through posture, through breathing, through asanas, and so on. And then later on, the will come, of course, the full realization. But there is nothing in the verse really directly talking about Krishna. The word used here is yogam atmanaha, engage in meditation on the transcendence. Quite general, quite broad. In the translation is meditation on the transcendent self, or no capital, so it's apparently the translation indicates the self, the Atma, not the Paramatma, at least not yet. So in the science of yoga, the two most famous texts are the Bhagavad-gita and the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. When we talk about yoga, or even when people will go a little deeper than the physical exercises and talk about yoga, these are the standard reference for Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga, Ashta, 8, Angas, limbs or parts, stages, phases. And the Yoga Sutra starts by saying Yogast Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that the goal of yoga is to extinguish Chitta Vritti, we could say the movements of the psychic body. That's the definition that Patanjali Muni gives. And it's quite a radical process. For instance, it does not only recommend breathing, but at one point even saying that any breathing, even if regulated, even if yogic, even if controlled, discipline, any breathing is an obstacle. Because any breathing brings some physiological change. When something comes in, on a more gross level, when we put food in, we know there is a change. The digestion starts. Obviously, we feel sometimes sleepy after eating because the blood goes to the stomach. We feel a little groggy or a little tired. But even when breaths come in, there is certainly a physiological movement. No, the lungs expand. So in the theory of yoga, of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, at one stage, breathing, regulated breathing, is positive, is necessary. But there is then one stage in which even the act of breathing is considered an obstacle. Because any air that comes in the most regulated, it sort of disturbs the meditation. So that's why Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, Vaishnava Acharyas, often explain that type of yoga system is not recommended or practicable in this age. Even Arjuna was a great warrior. And let's not forget, Arjuna grew up as a yogi in the Himalayas. He was not one of these princes that they grow up all pampered in a palace. He grew up among the yogis. Only later on, they came down from the Himalaya and they came to the palace of Hastinapura. And even then, of course, they went to the ashram of Dronacharya, so more discipline. So even Arjuna, despite his exceptional qualities, he said, I will see at the end of this chapter, he'll say, my dear Krishna, you telling me about this yoga, but I don't think it's practicable. Because the mind is as uncontrollable as the wind. It's a very strong metaphor, because the wind, how can you control the wind? Nobody can control the wind. With all the technology at our disposition, when there is even a normal wind, what to speak of a storm, who can control it? But here, there is another analogy, also based on wind. Nivata sto, nivata, vata, of course, many of you, probably all of you know about Ayurveda. No, vata is one of the three divisions of the body. Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. Vata or Vayu, the air. So here it says Nivata, non-Vata, non-wind, Yata Dipo, just like a lamp remains undisturbed, remains steady in a place where there is no wind. Similarly, the yogi, whose mind is controlled, then remains steady. In India, where all temples have fans, some of you have experienced that, and there are fans going on all the time, especially during Arti, because there's a lot of people. So when the deepa comes out of the altar, they switch off the fans. Otherwise, the deepa, the lamp, will go off. You can feel it. Sometimes you're there, almost already sweating, and then they turn off the fan, and you feel it. Then you wait for 2 minutes, and they put it on back, and then you get some relief. But the principle is the same. This air, this wind, especially violent wind, puts off the flame, or at least makes it very oscillating, wavering, wobbly. And so, Krishna is speaking. You say, no, just like in a lamp in a windless place, it stays steady, so the mind can be controlled. But Arjuna later says, no, but this is more harder to control the mind than control the wind. And Krishna says, yes. He doesn't say, no, you're in Maya, you don't know what you're talking about. No, he says, yes, yeah, he acknowledges the difficulties, but he says, but it is possible by abhyasa, practice, and vairagya, which is detachment. But this sort of abhyasa, which is basically a synonym for sadhana, and this type of detachment is very difficult, especially Srila Prabhupada many times often says, it's not like practicing yoga in some modern city. Just like right now we are studying the Bhagavad-gita, and I'm sure, I cannot be mathematically sure, but I'm pretty sure that there are several yoga studios in Ljubljana where people right now, 7:30, are practicing yoga. Practicing postures, practicing breathing. And we don't want to ridicule that because it's healthy. It's a healthy practice. It helps. Pranayama certainly helps steadying the mind, pacifying the mind, and certainly the patience that takes to sit down and control the body certainly is useful psychologically, physiologically. It's also a social activity. People meet before the practice, then they meet after. So we don't want to ridicule yoga, but it's a different, colloquially speaking, it's a different ball game than what Krishna is talking. Because as you remember, at the beginning of the chapter, Krishna said, first thing, go in the mountains, go in the jungle. First thing, brahmacharya, so you cannot be married. The only yoga, real yoga, that allows married life is bhakti yoga. Jnana yoga, Ashtanga yoga, they don't allow being married with wife, with children, with job. So, first of all, go in a solitary place. Then you put this deer skin. I hear that deer skin is to keep the snakes out. Somehow it seems that they don't like to go on the deer skin. But because the deer skin is a bit rough, there are this hair. So Krishna says put also a cloth. I don't know if it's Krishna or the purport, but put also a cloth. And then start. Wait, you should have already started yama and niyama, the prohibitions and the prescriptions. And some are, even that which is the first step of yoga, some of them are quite difficult. Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, not only, of course, externally, not having sexual relationships, but also completely cutting off from all the, we could say, sexual sphere of life. Thinking, meditating, observing, all the aspects of sex life. Then, santosha. Santosha means one should be satisfied. And that's not a goal. That's a mandatory prerequisite. One may say, but if I'm not satisfied, how can I be satisfied? Right? Satisfaction, in one sense, is a feeling. So if I'm not satisfied, how can I be satisfied? How can I be peaceful? But the yoga said, no, you got to be peaceful. Just to start yoga, you got to be peaceful. You got to be satisfied. If you are too absorbed in desires, ambitions, plans, objectives, if you feel that something is missing in your life, then you cannot even start doing yoga. So, santosha, you got to be satisfied. How you do that? How do you do that? Well, you got to somehow, by your culture, by your teachings of your guru, by your own reflections, you got to understand that there is nothing missing in your life. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. You have to have absorbed, assimilated this idea that there is nothing missing in my life. Gratitude can help you. You're sitting there in the mountain and you get to feel that I have everything I need. And it is by the grace of God. Whatever forms of God, whatever aspect of God, but by the mercy of the divine, by the mercy of the Supreme Spirit, whatever the yogi theological understanding is, I'm happy, I'm santosha. Then, slowly you can start. Then asana, get to... And the yogis generally don't do many asana. See, sometimes when you read a yoga book, there are hundreds of asana. Yogis generally just focus on just few. Whatever helps to be steady, undisturbed. It's not acrobatics. It's not contortionism. It's to steady the mind. The mind is the center of yoga. Srila Prabhupada writes is one of these purports. The mind is the center of yoga, and everything is done in Ashtanga yoga is to control that mind, to make it peacefully. Vritti. Vritti means many things in Sanskrit. Vritti means vibrations. Vritti means, we could compare vritti to the... What do you call when the water goes like this? Whirlpools. Huh? The whirlpool of the mind. Huh? Vritti means also occupation. What you do to sustain yourself, what you do to sustain your job, your occupation. That's also vritti. So, yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And Nirodha means really extinguishing. See, we use the word control, but it's more than control. It's really like annihilating the mind, stopping the mind. Stopping the mind. Because, why? Because the mind ultimately is something external to us. Just like this body, flesh, bones, muscles, blood. This is external to us. Also, the psychic body is external to us. So until the mind is really in Patanjali yoga system, until the mind is really, all its tendencies are extinguished, then you cannot really focus. And similarly, in the Bhagavad-gita and the Bhagavatam, many times the Bhagavatam brings up this meditation, but it's an active meditation. There are several parts in the Bhagavatam where the meditation culminates in the form of Vishnu. And there are very detailed descriptions, for instance, in the third canto, of how the yogi should meditate. And it goes from each limb of the Lord. It describes the feet, the calves, the leg, the dress, every single, the abdomen, then the chest, the arms, the jewelry on the arms, the symbols or the weapons of the Lord. It even says, for instance, that the yogi should meditate on the Sudarshan chakra of the Lord. Generally in the upper right hand of the Lord. And it says that this Sudarshan has a dazzling effulgence. Dazzling. Super luminous. And it says in the Bhagavata that the Sudarshan chakra has 1,000 spokes. And the yogi has to meditate on each of the 1,000 spokes. So that's pretty detailed. We have 1,000 spoke in the Sudarshan chakra, and the yogi has to, I don't know for how long, but each 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, till 1,000. Imagine after purifying, already does pranayama, already does asana, already does everything, full brahmacharya, full everything. Then when he meditates on the Sudarshan chakra, then his consciousness becomes super purified. And at one point, it's a direct meditation. It's not only a visualization, it's an actual perception of the Lord within the heart. And when the Lord, and when the yogi comes to the face of the Lord, who is very softly smiling, very satisfied, very pure and completely aloof from matter, completely self-satisfied Atmarama, when the yogi sees the eyes of the Lord, then he feels completely happy. And here, Srila Prabhupada kind of gives a shortcut to the whole process, because he's a bhakti yogi, acharya, powerful acharya, so he goes directly to the essence. A truly Krishna conscious person, Srila Prabhupada writes, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant, undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Just like we sing, Shiradika Madhavayora Param Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swadana Lolupasya Vande Guroshi Charana Ravinda. Pratikshana, each moment, a self-realized soul enjoys in the mind the pastimes of Shiradika Madhava. Or is so absorbed in service, whatever service that the Guru gave, that is always happy. So these are some considerations on this verse, on this analogy. Thank you for your attention. Is there any reflection, comments, or even questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna, thanks for the lecture. So, for example, there are some devotees that are absorbed in their service, like following the instructions of Guru or just doing service for you. But maybe in my perceptions, I still feel like they're not, maybe not so blissful, not perfect. But they're serving, they're following, and they're flying. So what is the reason that we cannot just come to this stage to be just blissful and do the service?
You like to translate? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was famous because he was giving profound spiritual teachings through stories. And some stories are even kind of funny, humorous. So one of the stories that Srila Saraswati Thakur gives is that there was a wedding party. And in Bengal, Bangladesh, at the time Bangladesh was part of India, it was part of the British Empire. Bengal and Bangladesh, there are a lot of rivers. And there are not a lot of bridges. So to use ferry boats is very common. To go from one one side of the river to another, and sometimes also longer distances. There are boats. So he says there was this large wedding party that was going for a wedding, for a marriage ceremony, and it was evening, so they get all into the boat, and they all fall asleep. And then there was this boatman who rows all night. And sometimes in Bengal you can still see, sometimes rowing means they only have a pole, they only have a bamboo. Anyway, so it was a very dark night, probably Amavasya, the dark moon night. So then he was rowing all night. So with the light of dawn, the people started waking up. Started stretching. And then they saw that they were at the same place. After all night, so 5, 6, 7 hours, they were still in the same place. And why? Because somehow they forgot to untie the boat. You can still see, for instance, if you go to Mayapur, either you go from Mayapur to Navadvip, or from Mayapur to Swarupganj, like the house of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is how they do. The boat comes and they tie the boat with ropes to the bank of the river, some bamboos stuck in the bank of the river. And then when they go, they untie. So they forgot to untie. Sometimes in telling the story, some devotees say they forgot to pull up the anchor. But in Bengal, they don't use anchors. Anyway, so that's artistic license. It's okay. Whatever it is, they did not unblock. So what does it mean for us? Sometimes we have some attachments, and by attachment, it's not necessarily material desires. I mean, material desires are there, obviously. I mean, generally, not. But also so many attachments in our psychic body, so many winds, to use the expression of the words. No, so many winds flying around in our head. There is resentment, there is envy, there is laziness. So sometimes, for instance, one aspect of laziness is that we may work very hard physically, but we neglect the internal work or even the intellectual work. Say, for instance, Srila Prabhupada, once I heard in a class, he was saying austerity. He was saying one aspect of austerity is to study the books 2 hours a day. It's not only Svadhyaya, because reading is Svadhyaya, which is one of the yoga practice, by the way, but is also austerity, tapasya. Because we are often restless, or let's say restless is negative, let's put it neutral. We are very active people. So we need to move, lift things, move things from here to there. We need to do things with our hands and our legs. So sometimes studying is a major austerity. Studying, especially not just reading, but studying. Studying means, the difference between reading and studying is that reading, you just go through, understand the meaning, and you go page after page. Studying, you try to grasp and remember the information, at least the key information. So it's more active, more effort. That's why tapasya. So this could be one reason. The devotee is very dedicated physically, which is already a tapasya, an effort, because he's working for the Lord. He's not working for himself or herself. He's not doing for paying. So it's already a sacred effort, but sometimes it's an unbalanced effort. It's only physical and not intellectual. what to speak of internally. I was shocked. I mean, I tell you, these are dear devotees. I tell you just because we are clinically studying. A couple of years ago, we had a Italian Sangha in Mayap. There were, say, five, six regular participants. And there were two senior devotees, senior by devotional service and senior also by age. In fact, one of the two, last year, he died. He left his body. So we just had the 1 hour discussion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, discussing. And then at the end, one of the two told to the other, how to translate. He told, in a kind of joking way, but it was a heavy joke. It's a way of saying, which is heavy, but he said in a kind of joking way. In Italian is va morì ammazzato. That literally means go and die being killed. It's heavy, but it can be said sometimes in a friendly way. You know, like there are other ways which are, but you can say it in a friendly, to a friend. No. Anyway, it was inappropriate. But this devotee took so badly, and he started insulting him. And we hear people almost 70-year-old, maybe one even more than 70-year-old. And they started fighting. You are not a devotee. Why you dress like that? Actually, both are in saffron. Why you say like that? You're not a devotee. And the others, they started insulting back. No, you're not. Then we came down, was one of these Mayapur apartments on the 5th floor, so we had to come down. In the street, they kept insulting each other, but heavily, with a lot of animosity. You are a pretender. You're a stupid man. I tell you, it was, wow, for me it was shocking. And these are devoted brahmacharis, so they're not in material life. They're living in Mayapur, in the Dham. They're senior as devotees. One was there since, I guess, 40 years in the movement, something like that. The other maybe 30 or something. And senior by age. Just after a Chaitanya Charitamrita Sangha, they could not control. They could not control. I was that, no, stop, no, they won't listen to anything. Although they have some respect for me, friendship and respect. And I say, no, please stop, no. So I'm just saying, obviously, there was a lot of stuff inside. And these are one of them. I remember that he goes to Ganga every day as a practice. He writes poetry. And I'm not saying they're hypocrites. I'm not saying they're pretenders. I'm just saying they're senior, serious practitioners. But there are a lot of stuff inside. And it's just like there is like when you you say when you go to put fuel, they say put off the cigarettes because there is so many fumes from the fuel, right? One spark may just everything explode. Thousands of liters of fuel underneath, but everything may explode. So the question is, what's inside? What we carry inside us? It may not be the gross things, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It may not be that. We may write poetries, and heartfelt poetries, not just for show. But then who knows what's inside? And this is just a case. Of course, we could talk about so many different cases. Traumas we bring back, and maybe we stuff it inside. So, and then we say, why we are not happy? Yeah, who knows what's inside? Who knows what turbulence it's inside? Like if you have flown, you have experienced some turbulence, sometimes heavy turbulence on the mind. There is a lot of turbulence still. A lot of envy. And of course, what we generally hear in this case is that due to offenses. But sometimes offenses are not gross. Maybe the devotee who works hard, like you said, may not just criticize or insult anybody openly. So it's not an offensive devotee. Some do, and generally they don't stick around much. But even if he's not expressing, who knows what they are dealing with inside? Resentment, guilt. So many. I mean, it could be a storage of who knows. First of all, many lifetimes. Even in this life, childhood deprivations. So many things that come out or don't come out, which sometimes is even worse. Don't come out, but certainly the happiness of the soul, it's hard to come through all that. Sometimes it is said, one who doesn't. What's the verse that says it's a steel frame heart who doesn't melt when the holy name is there? So this steel frame is not just cruelty, cruelty to animals, some of these devotees don't even kill mosquitoes and things like that. They don't eat chocolate. They don't do anything wrong externally, but they have this steel frame. It's there sometime, and we have to look into it. We have to look into it to get to be vulnerable and take shelter. Like Ravindra Prabhu, some of you know him, I'm sure all of you heard about it. He said, it's not a problem to have a problem. The problem is not to do anything about that problem. And sometimes we stuff these things down. And it becomes like a volcano. You probably heard this volcano in Italy, Vesuvius, over Naples. You probably heard the story of Pompeii. Pompeii was a city, Roman city under the Vesuvius, and one day the Vesuvius just exploded, erupted, and covered the city, just overnight. And it covered people. In fact, they still have people like as they were at the moment of the eruptions. That's for Naples. Naples means Neapolis. In Latin means new city. Because after Pompeii was destroyed, they built a new city, Neapolis, which now it calls Naples, or in Italian, Napoli. But the Vesuvius, before, traditionally, was always with this smoke coming out. My mother, she remembers as a child seeing the Vesuvius with the smoke coming out. And now, since a few decades, 50 years, 60 years, there's no more smoke. And it's extremely dangerous. Because when the smoke comes from the volcano, there is some lessening of the pressure. Right? Some gas is coming out. When there is no smoke, the gas is not coming out. So it's decades that the Vesuvius is building the pressure. It's like a pressure cooker. So decades that nothing comes out. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe nothing will happen. But it's more pressure. All the gas that was supposed to come out, it doesn't come out. So similarly, in our psyche, who knows what gases are there? Who knows? I mean, each one has his own history, his own past, his own background, his own previous life, his own baggage. We call it baggage, colloquially. And if it's not coming out, it could be a problem. And it's not a surprise if we are not happy, ecstatic, like that. Even if we externally, physically, we are doing all that we have to do. Does it give any idea? Some hint to explore? Yes? Okay. Okay, should we close here? Yes. So silence means agreement. Thank you very much. Bhagavad-gita Ziti ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.